The four of us cousins were enjoying our stories, just shooting the breeze. Anyway, there were both girls and guys here. Plus, we had people over a wide spread of ages, adult, high school, and elementary school. Even if we just talked about our own lives, the other three kept listening attentively. I think I'm finally getting used to all this. Jessica and Maria have grown more than I could have imagined in the past 6 years. To be honest, I was feeling a bit uncomfortable, but talking like this, guess that on the inside, nothing's really changed since back then.
I agree. You haven't changed a bit, even after 6 years. Even though your body's gotten gigantic, you're still a kid inside. I'm a kid too. I'm a kid too.
Well, even you aren't going to be a kid forever, are you, Maria? I mean, you're going to transform from a kid into a cute young lady, aren't you? And when that happens, that flat as board chest will reach Jessica's level, huh? When that happens, you gotta let me touch him, okay? God damn it, Battler! It's bad enough that you're harassing your adult cousin, but now you're making these comments out of fucking, like, she's 9, right? Like, you're telling a 9-year-old, listen, when you get titties, you gotta let cousin Battler have at him. Like, you fucking creepy bastard. Like, I can only assume this is all a big joke, but it's fucking weird. I don't like it.
Oh god. Let's touch him. Promise.
No, Maria-chan. You can't make that kind of promise. That's bad, bad, bad.
I promise, so I'll let him touch him. I keep my promises. Always keep them.
Maria, you really are an earnest good girl. The guy you marry is gonna be really lucky.
Hey, stop trying to change the subject by making it sound pretty. Maria, that promise never happened. Never. The promise is cancelled?
As I thought, without Battler-kun and our little quartet, this group of cousins just doesn't feel complete. These 6 years have been kind of lonely.
That's true. We didn't really goof off like this. Still, we did have some pretty constructive conversations, right? Stuff about preparing for our future, exam taking, finding jobs.
No, I'm so sorry. Now that I'm here, we just talk about stupid stuff and mess around.
I'm having more fun this year.
That's true. I agree, this year's the most fun yet. Maria's sincere words probably spoke for everyone present. George Aniki stroked Maria's head, and she giggled like a happy kitten. Pardon me. Your meal's ready. Timid knocking sound from the equally timid voice of a young woman. Oh, that's Shannon. I thought it might have been Genji. Jessica answered brightly.
Shannon, come in. You remembered Battler, right?
Jessica stood up from the bed and opened the door. There stood a servant girl, must have been about our age.
It's been quite some time since we last met, Battler-sama. It's nice to see you after 6 years. It's me, Shannon.
Trembling a little as she noticed me, she bowed deeply. Ah, Jessica had me surprised, but look at you, Shannon-chan. You've turned into a total beauty too, haven't you?
You are too kind.
Still, food on this island must be really nutritional, huh? What are you eating and how are you training to get boobs that big? Guess I'll have to feel them a bit and see whether yours or Jessica's are bigger, okay? With both hands poised and saliva dribbling from my mouth, I closed in. For the sake of justice and my personal honor, I'd like to point out that I don't suffer from some strange disease that makes my lymph nodes itch until I scratch my neck open, and which can only be prevented by fondling breasts. This is just a Battler-style method of communication. If I slowly close in on her like this, odds are 8 or 9 out of 10 that I get slapped or clobbered, right? So I can use this Battler-style original technique to spark a gag like that and break the ice. Well, it also means I really do get to touch them on that 1 in 10 chance though, right? Like that ever happened. It happens. At that point, my hands were less than a centimeter away from Shannon's boobs. The counterstrike had yet to come. She blushed and lowered her head in embarrassment when she realized what was going on. But she just stood there with both hands politely joined in front of her, not even trying to resist or cover her breasts. Hey, I wasn't planning on this. Please hit me right now or I'm seriously gonna... Which is why I was glad that Jessica chose that time to drive her elbow into the back of my head. Ow! Thank you so much, Jessica.
Why the hell are you thanking me?
Seriously, my bad, Shannon-chan. I almost got overwhelmed by your hypnotic chest. More importantly, anyone who gets that close has got to be a molester. You've got to fight back when people do that.
But you are an important guest, Battler-sama.
Now look here, a pervert's a pervert whether he's a guest or not. A girl's chest's got an air defense identification range of about 10 centimeters or so. Once someone trespasses within 2 centimeters, it's already an invasion of airspace, so you better scramble the jets immediately and give him an instant slap.
I couldn't do such a thing, because we are, furniture.
Of course she didn't want her breast touched, but if a guest so desired, she was prepared to sacrifice herself to suit their wants. A girl like this needs some urgent protection. To think such devoted girls still exist in this era. It's enough to make a man dizzy. But no. No! I'm coming at you with a perverted face again. Knock me down. Look out, pervert on the loose. This gag can't end until you deliver the punchline, so slap me. Please, hit me.
I cannot fulfill your request, because I'm furniture. But if it were an order, I'd obey you, because that is my duty.
Then I'll make it in order. The next time Battler Kun tries to touch your breast, counterattack with a slap. Got it?
Yes, as you wish. From now on, that's what I'll do. Please understand, Battler-sama.
Shannon-chan announced this while bowing elegantly to me. Her expression was radiant. I gave her a thumbs up to show her I was fine with that. 6 years ago, you might have been mistaken for a servant's daughter who lent a hand at your parents' work. But now you're a full-fledged adult servant. How long have you been working here?
Well, I have had the pleasure of serving this household for about 10 years.
She's... The kanji for her name are read as Shannon. Now, here's another name that's far from typical for a Japanese person. Back in the day, I was a kid myself, so I accepted her name without paying it much attention. Thinking about it now, though, her name's pretty unusual, even though she's not a member of the Ushiromiya family. Maybe it's like a servant's professional name or something. If so, that might explain why her name's so similar to that Kanon-kun, the kid I met earlier in the Rose Garden. She's a long-term servant who served here since she was 6 years old. Her appearance had changed so much that I couldn't match her to the person of my memories, but we both knew each other 6 years ago. That shy part of her had always been there, but she did seem to have developed all the allure you'd expect of a girl her age. Especially in her breasts. Yes. That kid we met earlier, Kanon-kun, is her little brother.
He's not exactly my little brother. Still, he loves me like a big sister. He didn't cause you any trouble, did he?
Haha, he's the same as always. If only he were just a bit more sociable.
I apologize if he's caused you any trouble.
Nah, he didn't cause any trouble at all. As a fellow man, I understand how moody you can get at that age. It's no surprise he's unsociable.
I get called that all the time too. I get called unsociable. Just like Kanon. You aren't unsociable at all, Maria-sama. Wanted to be like him.
You said the meal was ready, right?
Yes. I am sorry. Your meal has been fully prepared, so please allow me to guide you all to the mansion.
Shannon bowed again and formally returned to her duty mode. We realized that if we made her stick around for any more light conversation, it would actually make it harder for her to do her job. We got up off our butts to avoid interfering with her work any further. So, shall we go to the mansion? Everyone's probably hungry, right?
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to Goto-san's food. That guy was apparently a chef at this famous hotel, so he's super good at cooking.
Ooh, I can't wait. Let's go, Maria. We're gonna stuff ourselves like pigs.
Stuff ourselves like pigs.
No. You can't take everything Battler-kun says seriously, okay? Because he's always just joking around. Okay, let's go. Under Shannon-chan's guidance, we headed towards the mansion. Met once again by the magnificent Rose Garden, we continued onward as the intimidating mansion of the Ushiromiya head family came into view. It had apparently been built shortly after the war, so you could feel the dignity of almost a half-century hanging about it. The building was gorgeous on the surface, but old as it was, equipment such as AC and heating were apparently quite frail. According to Jessica, midwinter was especially tough, what with all the drafts. Haven't these people ever heard of a kotatsu? As we entered the entrance hall, an aged servant greeted us. Now him, I remembered. Genji-san, who had been working here longer than anyone, filled the role of head servant. Battler-sama, it has been quite some time since we last met. As our eyes met, he greeted me with a calm, composed voice. His bow wasn't as graceful or as refined as Goda's, but despite its simplicity, it communicated his feelings very well. Genji-san, it really has been a while. You look well. Thank you. I have been quite well. And Battler-sama, you have become a splendid young man. You are beginning to resemble the master in his youth. I look like grandfather? Guess that means grandfather was pretty popular with the ladies when he was young. From here on, I shall take Shannon's place and accompany you. Please, come this way. Shonen-chan bowed deeply and watched us leave. After that, we headed towards the dining room under Genji-san's guidance. Genji-san, just like Kumasawa-san, stood in the stark contrast to us young people who had grown beyond recognition over the last 6 years. His appearance was exactly the same as in my memories from 6 years ago. It was as though time had stopped since the... Oh, excuse me. It was as though time had stopped since the last time we met. Genji-san was an extremely quiet and diligent person. He was basically grandfather's close aide or caregiver, and you might even call him grandfather's companion of many years. In fact, it seems he was by grandfather's side even more than my late grandmother was. According to Jessica, grandfather trusted him more than any of his blood relatives. But I wonder how long he's served. I never got the details, but I heard something about him being here since the very beginning, when this mansion was first constructed. Which would mean that he's dedicated half his life to serving here. It's easy to see why he's so trusted. As we passed through a massive hall that extended up into the second story of the mansion with no separating floor, I spotted something that hadn't existed in my memory of 6 years ago. Oh ho? Oh. What a nice painting. There was an awfully big portrait hanging right in the front of the stairs that rose to the second floor. Without thinking, I stopped walking, captivated by it. Since I'd stopped so fast, Maria, who was falling behind me, ran to my back. Sorry. Hey, Jessica. Has that picture always been there? I pointed at the big, prominently displayed portrait in the hall. Everyone else stopped too. Right. When you last came here, that hadn't been hung yet, had it? When was it again? Well, if my memory doesn't fail me, it was put on display sometime around the year before last. You are correct, sir. In April of the year before last, the master put it on display there, having previously ordered a painter to create it. Grandfather did that? So he paid to have it painted just for him, huh? The portrait suited his western mansion, and that woman in the elegant dress gave off a sense of refinement. I couldn't have guessed her age, but her sharp eyes and the strong will she seemed to possess made her look youthful. She seemed somehow different from the composed middle-aged women you see in famous pictures. If she had normal black hair, I might have assumed it was a portrait of my long-deceased grandmother in her prime. However, she had beautiful blonde hair and didn't look Japanese at all. So, just who is this lady? Marie answered that simple question enthusiastically, as though proud she knew the answer.
I know. She's Beatrice.
What? Beatrice. She's a witch. Didn't you ever hear the stories about her long ago? A witch? You mean the witch of this island? I think I already said this, but Orokinjima is a small island, only 10 kilometers in circumference. However, that's actually pretty massive considering that only the Ushiromiya family lives here. So only the harbor and the area around the mansion were set up to be lived in. Beyond that, the island remained as untouched as when it was uninhabited. The vast and empty forest had absolutely no lights, phones, or people passing through. To understand how dangerous that is, you need to forget your common sense as a city dweller. After all, if you happen to fall down a hole in the depths of the forest and sprain your ankle, no one would come save you, no matter how much you cried or screamed. That's ominous. Then once the sun went down, the forest would be wrapped in complete darkness as there were no streetlights. And since there were no signs, it'd be easy to get lost and confused, losing your sense of direction inside that dark forest. Nowadays, most people see a forest as a peaceful place. But if the people of bygone eras, before the light of civilization drove out the night, forests were as geographically separated from civilization as the sea. There were oceans above the ground. Fishermen who go out into the ocean are putting their lives at risk despite their technical knowledge. In the same way, hunters who go out to the forest are in danger, despite having specialized knowledge of their own. If children were ever to go play in such a dangerous forest, something terrible might happen. Someone's parents must have thought so. Maybe grandmother first said it, or maybe it was grandfather himself. Or perhaps the story's been passed down on this island since ancient times. There's a terrible witch in the forest, so you must not go in. At some point, this ghost story of Rokkenjima was born. In this legend of Rokkenjima's witch. That's why, when we talk about a witch on this island, we're referring to the master of that vast and savage forest. Come to think of it, when I stayed at this mansion as a little kid during those eerie nights when the wind and rain poured on the windows, I remember being terrified by the story of the forest witch, who roamed around searching for human sacrifices. So, Beatrice, huh? When Aniki mentioned it, I searched my memory and was sure I recalled hearing a name like that when I was little. I see. Still, I totally forgot that the witch in that legend had an elegant name like Beatrice. So, did grandfather go out of his way to have a portrait made just because we grandchildren didn't believe the story? She's the witch from grandfather's delusions. Ever since he had this picture hanged, he's been having a harder and harder time telling the difference between truth and fantasy. To us, she's just a witch that exists in grandfather's mind, but to him, she's a being that exists on this island. Exists. He says he had that painting made because the rest of us would be incapable of understanding otherwise. Huh, the whole thing's creepy as hell.
Milady, this portrait is precious to the master. I beg of you, do not say such things in front of him.
I know. Even if you didn't tell me, I'd never do something like that. Jessica glanced at the portrait with an irritated gaze before turning away. Let's go. We're making everyone wait in the dining room.
I'm hungry.
Only a small portion of this island was controlled by the Ushiromiya family. All of the lawless remainder was the domain of the witch Beatrice. You might even call her the true ruler of Rokkenjima. I felt a faint revival of that unsettling sense of misfortune, which I'd felt when I learned of the tutelary god's shrine being struck by lightning. I remember that Kumasawa-san tried to tell an ominous story about Rokkenjima before Jessica stopped her. I don't know what she was planning to tell us about this island, but I do know one thing. It isn't the Ushiromiya family that rules Rokkenjima. It's the witch Beatrice. That's right. After all, this is the witch's island. Interesting. Battler!
You're so slow.
When I looked around, everyone was already heading towards the dining room. I hurriedly chased after them. We walked up to the huge double doors that led to the dining room. Genji-san knocked.
I have brought the children. Please, pardon the intrusion.
The doors were opened, and we were invited inside. The dining room, which looked exactly like you'd imagine a rich person's dining room to be, had a super long table that was obviously positioned with no purpose other than to make the guests conscious of their rank. Our parents were already sitting in accordance with that ordering.
You're late, brats. Hurry up and take a seat.
The old bastard pressed us to sit. The only gaps in that group of people were the spots where we were supposed to sit, which only made us feel our tardiness all the more. The seat at the head of the table, called the incipient's chair, was for the most highly ranked, reserved for grandfather. It was still empty. He probably wanted to show up last for dramatic effect. From the perspective of someone facing the incipient's chair head-on, the seating order went from left to right, with the lower-ranking seats progressing in rows of two, further away from it. So the left-hand side of the first row, closest to the incipient's chair, was where Uncle Kraus should have sat, since he was the second highest in rank. It looked like he hadn't arrived yet, so that seat was empty. Across from his chair on the right side of the first row sat the eldest daughter of the family, Ava, who was the third highest in rank. The left-hand side of the second row was for the fourth highest in rank. There sat my damn dad, Rudolph, the third of the siblings. Across from him, on the right side of the second row, sat Aunt Rosa, the youngest sibling. At this point, you might expect their husbands and wives to come next. But nope, the left-hand seat in the third row, rank number 6, belonged to Jessica. Opposite her was George Aniki. I sat next to Jessica, and Maria sat across from me. And finally, next to me on the left-hand side of the fifth row sat Aunt Nazi, the 10th highest in rank. Opposite her was Uncle Hideyoshi. Next to Aunt Natsu, in the 6th row and the final seat on the left-hand side, sat Kairi-san. The seat opposite to Kairi-san was empty, even though silverware had been set there and everything. According to this ranking system, that spot was where Aunt Rosa's husband should be sitting. Even though he wasn't supposed to be coming, his place was made up. Normally, ranking systems of this sort give spouses equal positions as their partners, but this Shiromiya family system was unique. Maybe it's a remnant of male chauvinism. If you start with the assumption that a woman's womb is just something to be borrowed, then the children of direct descent would come first, directly followed by their grandchildren. In other words, spouses have no blood ties and are therefore placed at the end of the line. It's terrible, but by this system, my grandmother would be ranked even lower than me if she were still alive. In their youth, they obeyed their father. After they get married, their husband. After aging, their children. There's the old saying, women have no home in any realm. Long ago, when I was still incapable of figuring all this out, I thought it was so great that we could all chat in our little groups, adult siblings with adult siblings and cousins with cousins. However, now that I can re-examine the seating order after growing up a bit, it stirs up some very complicated feelings in me. Aunt Natsu, who was married to the eldest son and was the de facto number 2 in managing this family, sat to my right, which meant that she was 2 steps lower than me in the ranking order. It was hard to imagine what might be going on inside her heart. That's why I made a small apologetic gesture towards her before sitting down.
How nice to see you, Battler-kun. You've grown quite tall, haven't you?
Oh, yep. 6 long years of eating well, sampling various cuisines, and deriving sustenance from Mother Earth's bountiful gifts. Hard work, but I pulled through.
Growing just like a boy, I see. How tall are you now?
I guess about 180 centimeters. But Aunt Natsu, that's where you're supposed to say heck. Sounds like all you did was eat.
Huh? Oh. I'm sorry.
After a short pause, she did laugh with me, but it seems she couldn't quite figure out what she was supposed to be laughing at. This woman is Aunt Natsu. She's the wife of the eldest son of the family, meaning she's my father's older brother's wife. It is simpler if I just call her Jessica's mother. Feels bad to say it like this, but while I didn't exactly dislike her, I didn't particularly like her either. She hardly ever spoke with us kids, and all my memories of her involve her talking to the adults about complicated things with a scary look on her face. In fact, since we hardly ever exchanged words, I spent a long time trying to figure out how I should approach her, though my efforts seemed to have ended in failure. The silverware sat neatly on the table, but the meal itself hadn't been brought in yet. As a general rule, you couldn't start a meal until the person sitting at the head of the table arrived. So, as long as grandfather didn't come, lunch would be put on hold indefinitely. Not even the appetizers would arrive. Simply put, the silence in this room was caused by our parents enduring their hunger while they waited for grandfather to arrive. However, the grandfather from my memories would always show up on time to meals like this. He was the kind of person who would never be so late that it kept everyone waiting, especially after the entire group had arrived. Grandfather's pretty late. As far as I can remember, he was always strict about time. Well, that might have been true 60 years ago, but it hasn't been that way lately. In fact, he's off in his own little world so often that he doesn't even show up at family meals. Still, I figured he'd at least come down today. Then again, I felt a lot more relaxed and happy without him. Jessica. When her mother scolded her, Jessica stuck her tongue out and looked away. No way around it. Might as well wait until our host arrives. When I glanced at the clock, I saw it was almost 12:20.